Yeah, when you move out of the way, I see it.
My ear's still there on this virtual screen. Started to crop my ears off.
Out of the way, I see it.
We're
Yeah,
live.
we're live now. So let's. So how'd it go, man? You're back at the hotel after the swampy Road Atlanta weekend.
Actually, I just jogged back to the hotel from the restaurant, just like a few blocks down the road.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Yeah, so we met up with the guys. We got here a little early, and yeah, so we finished up, and the cars were full. So I'm like, I'll jog back. I actually beat the car here.
Nice.
Pretty fun.
Nice. So you said something about Schaffner. That's your video guy, right?
Yeah, he wasn't at the last event. He went to breakfast on the way to the airport, and they tested his temperature. I guess that's what they're doing in Dallas or wherever he's at, and they said he had a temperature, so he decided not to get on the plane. Turned out it was just some fever. It wasn't COVID.
Dude, everything's the COVID now, right?
Yeah, well, I still have my mask just in case.
Dude, we just ordered a new thing of TrackDaz masks, because it seems like this mask thing is kind of gonna stick around for a minute. So might as well try to sell some more masks, I guess.
Yeah, it's confusing everyone. We just went down. I mean, I made a reservation at this restaurant. They said, well, 6 max. And I said, well, there's 8. Can you just split up the tables? And she said, oh, I don't think we can make a reservation like that. I go, what do you mean? How about if I call you back and make 2 reservations? Let me talk to the manager. It's like throws everyone for a curve. No one knows what the rules are.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Nutty.
So yeah, let's talk about Road Atlanta.
Sure.
It was Yamaha sweep both days.
Yeah. We basically came, we saw, we took names, and we left.
We kicked ass. We could say that. You guys kicked ass.
Yeah, no, I don't want to be boastful about it, because it happens, and you come back with 2 wadded bikes the next one. So it's just racing. I think we just had our organization was maybe just a tick better. Our riders are really good, and we weren't with our dramas though. We had a little bit of drama also.
Yeah, you did. So it looked like it was a swampy, like just hot, nasty, just typical Georgia summer weekend.
And loving it.
And exactly.
The worse the conditions, the more I like it.
So
I know it's bad for everyone else too.
I'd like to just kind of go in order of the, let's talk about the practice sessions, like in order, and then we'll go into the races after that. But, session 1, I mean, it looked like Cameron had a little breakdown. Like, what the hell happened? Like, you all were working on
it was, the rider had a little miscommunication with the motorcycle. That's the way I describe it. We finally got our new rotors, and so we're able to run our new forks, our World Superbike spec 2020 forks. And so we bolted everything on, and we got it so late. We were trying to get them before Ridge, but we got it so late. Again, back to the COVID thing. Just trying to get anything happening is like impossible. But anyways, we got them so late. We bedded them in at the track, and I told Cameron, hey, just go out and do like a 1 or 2 easy laps and make sure the rotor's going to come in nice. So he went out, and he was doing his easy lap, and he went down to turn 10, and he was in 6th gear, and he broke real easy and all the way down the apex and forgot to backshift off the 6th. And so he was such a low RPM that the backshift strategy, the blipper, didn't work that low RPM. So he kept blipping back and wouldn't take it. And it stalled because he was down at near idle. And he thought the engine died. And so then he tried to restart it. By then, I think he had it in 4th and let the clutch out, and it stalled. Then he couldn't get it restarted, so he just pushed it up the hill and coasted in. All the while, Lee, myself, and Will are all looking at each other like, okay, who messed up? We of course, used the F word. But the bike ran for 2 hours, and the dyno was just fine. And, we showed up the track, and we had plenty of time. We looked over everything. I mean, Lee came by the shop and put the bike together, and he was there for a few days, just like rubbing down on everything. So it was perfect. And we all looked at each other like, uh-oh. Will's, of course, thinking, what did I mess up? And Lee's thinking, oh my God, what did I mess up? And I'm thinking, did I put the right map in it? you know, so we're all staring at each other. Of course, he comes coasting down, and we pull the data, and Paul, the other electronics guy, we're all staring at it. We don't see anything wrong. We do a health check on the whole system. There's nothing wrong. We don't get it. So we fire it up, let him back out. And he goes out, gets, you know, P1. But we come back and we start analyzing, you know, step by step, do the forensics on it. And yeah, sure enough, he forgot to backshift. Happens to the best of us. You know what it is you take a rider like that. You take a rider like that, and he's at the top of his game, right?
Yeah.
And he has a certain rhythm. You tell him, go out and go easy. And it's outside of his box. You follow what I'm saying? Just like telling a rider, oh, go easy the last few laps when you get a lead, and they crash the thing because they forget their braking markers and their rhythm and all that stuff. So it's best just to let them go out and go hard. You know, make sure that all that stuff's done at the shop, not at the racetrack.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, I saw him, he came in with like, I don't know, 20 minutes to go or something. And, you know, I saw lots of hand gesturing between you and Cameron, lots of.
Yeah. Well, like, it was more like this.
Yeah. Like, I don't know
what happened.
I don't know what the hell was going on there, but he kind of came out and went right to P1 in the second lap after that little hand gesture session you guys had. So
yeah,
you know, I don't know what that meant, but you want to tell me about that? Or
I think he just was saying I was trying to backshift, it wouldn't go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're trying to pull the info out of him at the same time, look at the data, try to compare the two, because the rider's got his own data logger. It's called his brain.
Yeah.
And then we have the bike's data logger, its brain. So we compare the two and see, you know, if they jive, if they match. And it wasn't matching. So we're scratching our heads. Well, that doesn't make any sense. We could see afterwards when you have enough time. There's so much data that comes off those motorcycles that it takes an hour to look at it all if you want to look at it closely. You know, like every little bit when you have any kind of failure. So we couldn't find any failure. So I'm like, man, I hate to have him go out and break down again, but hey, let's just run him out there. No problem. Thing ran like great, you know, for the rest of the session and the rest of it.
So, you know, this has kind of been the theme of the last couple of weeks, right? Jake is really coming together. You know, Jack dude's really, you know, really looking like he's finding his pace.
Yeah, you know, Jake's so fit, and he's so aggressive that the fitness along with the aggression really pays off at a track like Road Atlanta. Plus, he's coming to terms with that motorcycle.
Yeah,
nothing like what he's ridden. I mean, he rode the Honda World Superbike, and I think this thing probably still has, even though that thing was a World Superbike, probably still has more power than that thing did. And you know, we're trying to find what he likes as far as the chassis setup and the electronics tailored to his style. He's very aggressive, so the electronics have to be even more aggressive to combat his style. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't add aggressive motorcycle to aggressive rider, you end up with not a very aggressive tire.
He's really exciting to watch, and you know, he's got his elbows out. Kind of reminds me of Ben Spies a little bit, and it's, you know, it looked like he led most of the first, you know, QP, right? Like the qualifying practice one, like he led most of that session, right?
Yeah, no, he was rolling, and so it was. I wasn't surprised. Like I said the last time we had our little chat, you know, I said, you know, he's going to be coming. He's going to be giving Cameron a little bit of hard for sure. Cameron was, you know, we came down to tire choice. You know, we were choosing between the hard one and the soft one, and just to fast forward, you know, in that morning warm up, we decided to try the hard one, and Cameron was within a tenth of the track record that was done on a qualifying tire.
Really?
So we went 23.9. I think Garrett went 23.8 last year on a real qualifying tire. So we thought, yeah, you know, if we had that soft tire on there, we'd probably gone at 23.5 or 6, and that would have been well under the track record. But you know, the hard tire went really good, and it probably would have lasted the whole race. So when it came time for a decision, we said, well, you know, what tire are we going to choose? Well, let's just go the same as Jake's got, because that way we know we're on the same tire, right? Because now you have to take, you know, Jake's getting along so well with the motorcycle that you have to take what Jake does into consideration when you make that choice as a rider or crew chief.
So it also looked like, I mean, I don't know what the hell you got Joseph feeding those things, but your guys' engines were fast, super fast over there. Like, I don't know what you guys found, but
Well,
180 plus mile an hour at Road Atlanta.
yeah, yeah. You know, we were on Jake's bike, I think was maybe a tick faster because he wasn't riding the limiter in the kink. Yeah, Cameron's bike, to get the gearing just right coming up out of turn one,
Yeah.
we had to just go ahead and sacrifice a little bit of limiter time on top speed.
Okay.
So even with that mile per hour, we're banging the limiter. So we couldn't have gone any faster, but it was still a good speed.
Awesome.
Yeah, so if you watch a video of the on bike, I think you could hear the limiter on when it goes through the kink, right before he drops down the hill for the brakes.
You know, and I want to include Schulte on this too, because you know he's an attack supported rider.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
And man, Maddie, you know, they found something too. You know, they were kind of struggling a little bit, and I mean, he was right there too.
Yeah, you know, we worked a little bit closely with Chuck Kiddo and some of the rest of the members of the team, try to give them a little support when they get stuck. But for the
Yeah.
most part, they developed their own motorcycle. It has basically the same GYTR parts we supplied them, and it has our oil pan. It has a Yoshimura pipe instead of our Acro pipe like we run. So ours might be just a tick faster, but for the most part, they have the same motorcycle. They have the same electronics. They have the same software package. So it's just a matter of the crews going to battle and seeing who come up with a better combination, and the riders as well.
So you know what? Really quick, I'm gonna just pause for a second before we start to talk about the scratched rain session.
Oh yeah.
There's a couple guys. Let's see here. We got John McCowan says that, you know, nice job in Hot Atlanta.
Yep.
Chris Lopez says the bikes look super planted, especially on Cameron's bike. Would you attribute that to the swing arm and fork combo?
Yeah, we were talking about that at dinner. You know, the bike has two hinges, right? One
Yeah.
hinge is the pivot and one hinge is the steering head. So between the clamps and the swing arm, for sure, our bikes look really stable. Even with as animated as Jake was, you know, the bikes look pretty planted, right? So I think we found a combination of stiffness versus flex that's working for us. So we'll just keep plugging away at it. I'm already starting to think about the next generation of swing arm and how much, if I can make it be better. You know, of course, sometimes you might go, oh, I want to make this thing better, and it's actually a turd, and you throw it away after about a week's worth of work.
You throw away a week's worth of work. That's
Yeah.
So you know what? Yeah, let's talk about we'll talk about free practice number 3 in a sec. But tell me a little about what the mindset is behind it didn't look like anybody went out for that rain session. I mean, like initially, I guess before it started really getting going, a few of the guys went out, but I didn't see you guys out there, and it looked like most everybody was in the pits after that.
Yeah, you know, Atlanta, if you're familiar with that part of the South.
Yes.
You know, I spent a little time in Fort Benning, so I was pretty familiar with it.
I was gonna know. I knew you were gonna go there.
Yeah. Anyway, but you know, if you spend, plus I've been going to Road Atlanta since the early '90s or mid '90s. You know, so I've seen it snow at that racetrack. But you got to look at the radar. You know, we have a lot more information now than we used to back then. Back then, you just go out. You didn't know what the weather was really. You kind of take a guess. You know, put your finger in the air. But now we pretty much know down the minute when the rain's going to come, when it's going to leave, how much you're going to have. So if we're not going to benefit from a wet session and we're already fast in the dry and all the rest of the days are going to be dry, why bother, right? You know, why put time on the engines? Why put stress on the crew? We have to change the setup of the motorcycle. But if it was going to be off on wet, we'd be out there for sure, you know, without a doubt. And as a matter of fact, we're looking at the weather today at our next event here in Pennsylvania. So we're over here at Pitt Race, and yeah, it looks like it might rain a little bit tomorrow, but and then, you know, we're going to be clear the rest of the time. So we probably, if it drizzled here and there, we may not even bother if it's going to be a nice sunny race day.
So I got another question. Let's see, Mark Johnson actually. He wants to know how much time do you spend analyzing data between the warm-up and the race start, and any rider coaching do you give?
All of the above, every single minute. You know, with some of the other riders, I think there was a little bit more rider coaching. For sure with Jake, I spent quite a bit of time rider coaching initially, but he seems to have seen the bright side. You know, he was on the dark side before riding you know, an 80 in the mud technology, you know. What was that guy's school that everyone used to go to?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that guy, yeah.
Yeah.
The stupid way to ride a road racer. But anyway, I mean, if you ride an 80 in the mud, I guess it'd be okay. But if you're riding a modern road racer with all electronics and stuff, let the bike do the work and concentrate on turning the thing, you know. So that's we've done some of that with Jake, but not so much with Cameron. He spent a lot of time on the motorcycle, so there isn't really much you could point to him at. And he self-analyzes his own riding quite a bit. You know, like I could be a little wider here. I'm turning my turn. He'll come in and tell me, you know, hey, the bike felt like this, but maybe I need to make my turn in a little later. You know, so he adjusts. Yeah. Where, like I said, Jake's still coming to terms with that motorcycle and these electronics and how to ride this motorcycle. So we can give him a little more attention on the rider aspect.
Well, you're seeing him make pretty big strides too.
Absolutely, he listens.
Learns. I mean, he's actually learning. He's not shooting from the hip at all. Jake's definitely out there putting in some work and, you know, getting it done.
Yeah, no, he listens, he learns, and even when, like for instance, we had a little brake issue at Road America with him in race 1. Yeah. And then we were at the shop, and I grabbed his lever, and it was really far back to the grip. You know, actually, Joseph noticed it on the dyno, and I said, "Man, if the lever fades at all, it's going to be in his knuckles." So it's kind of little things I talked to him about. I said, "Hey, man, can you like learn to ride with the lever out just a little bit more, just so you have a little bit of a safety margin?" He goes, "Yeah, I get used to it." I go, "Let me see your hands." I go, your fingers are long. You can reach it. He goes, "Yeah, I'll get used to it." So he has that mindset. Yeah. You know, it isn't like, "Oh no, this is the way I ride. That's the way I have to have it." He's really, really flexible.
Well, you know, in free practice 3, you know, I mean, Cam basically jumped to the top right there on lap 2. So, you know, he threw down some crazy time, and I think he went faster than the race lap record there. Is that
I think he did. Yeah, that's what they said. I mean, I didn't go back and look at all the history of it, but yeah, 23.9 is moving.
Yeah, so that
moving around that racetrack.
You know, that first session, you know, Cam had that weird rhythm problem. What the hell was it that Jake had? He kept coming in and out, you know, like, was it an electrical gremlin? Like, what was going on there?
Yeah, we had, there's these Bosch relays. There's 2 of them on the motorcycle. One controls the fuel pump, Lambda is the oxygen sensors, and the fuel injectors. And then there's another one that controls the rest of it, you know, the main one. So the one that controls the fuel pump and the injectors, that one had a little corrosion, built up a little corrosion, maybe from wet or something, across one of the contacts and started arcing. And so it caused one of the terminals just to have enough, you know, it's like having a bad plug at your house. You know, it doesn't get a connection. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We had that little issue. So we changed the harness out before the race and everything was good. So we found the problem, we rectified it. So yeah, every now and then you get some kind of little thing. You know, you got to just be more diligent with a dielectric grease and things like that. It's the same kind of thing happens a lot of times on OEM bikes on the alternator, you know, the regulator. Sometimes you'll cook the little terminals on the regulator. When you run a race bike, you've probably seen that a lot out in Chuckwalla or wherever, the high temperatures.
Yeah.
Somebody will fry a connector to the regulator. It's the same kind of thing. I think the Cowies did that a lot.
Yeah, the R6s are kind of notorious for that. I know.
Yeah, exactly. Same kind of thing happened to one of the relay terminals. It has similar kind of old school blade type terminals it pushes in instead of the mil spec stuff, which is all over everything else. So you don't really get a failure on any of the mil spec stuff, but those blade push type connectors you really have to keep an eye on. And yeah, so we caught it and fixed it, and yeah, we're trying to diagnose that. It was really odd because it was, one system was up at, you know, 13.5 volts. The other system was losing voltage down to 7 or 8 volts. We're like, okay, that's what it is. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was that.
And I think Jake ended up, he missed most of the sessions, but he still ended up P5 in that, which is, it's like, that just shows like how fast he was from the jump. Right?
Yeah, he did. And that carried over to Super Bowl. That's why he was in fourth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he only got the one. Yeah.
Matty finished in free practice 3. He was P2 again, So man, like he just looks like he's on rails, And so then that kind of jumps into Super Bowl. Let's really quick. There's a couple more questions coming up on the YouTube, so stand by.
Yeah.
Let's see. Chris Lopez, he's just excited about you guys, so I'll leave that one alone.
Hey, Chris.
He says that Mark Johnson again. He says that did you make any rider and bike setup adjustments based on the heat?
Probably more. Yes. We changed. So I'm trying to go back in my notes because we've, from QP1 all the way to the race 2, we're making little tiny adjustments. So at Road Atlanta, you have a lot of pitching on the motorcycle. You have downhill braking zones, the G out, you have S's, and you have some climbing and some wheeling. And then you have some G outs and the S's where you get down the bottom of the hill. Early on, Cameron said the front end would close, meaning that it would have a push. And, so the handlebar would turn in. And that happened during race 1. And he says, yeah, the handlebar closed on me a bunch of times. And the front end closed. And so we made some spring change, which really helped with that, just to get a little bit of the mass off front when it was loaded. And then also we made a little spring change on the rear to get a little more grip out of the rear tire and fix some of the seesaw of the motorcycle. We did that, and we also made an adjustment on traction control to fight some of the greasiness that would come up about mid-race.
I was just kind of adding to Mark's, I had already written in my notes about the heat, but it looked like a bunch of people had issues with the heat. And, Kyle had that poor Ducati just spewing out like a steam engine during the race. So is it that your guys' bikes just handled the heat better? Like what is it that made it so your guys' bikes could still be fast as hell, but you didn't overheat?
I think it's Yamaha 1.
Of course.
That might be the reason. I mean, the bikes don't heat up. They're consistent race long, and we have a pretty good platform. I mean, the between the frame and the engine and everything works together really well. So I guess we have to kind of go towards that.
Yeah.
I will say this, but I really hope the other guys get a little bit better. I mean, we want to win, but we also want to keep the fans. Like in one way, the racing was great for us because the guys just split for the most part. But at the same time, it wasn't that great for the fans because the guys just split.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been through cycles of our sport where there's always that one or two dudes that kind of controls the program, right?
Yeah, the Matt Mladen's and
Matt Mladen, and before that it was Miguel or whatever.
Yeah.
World Superbike, it was Carl Fogarty and
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So
yeah, Mark Marquez.
Yeah, Mark Marquez.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like that guy's kind of throwing everybody up in a loop right now because he done broke his arm.
Yeah, he hurt himself. So that makes the bit racing a bit better, right? Because now you don't know who's going to show up as a Quattroro or what I mean?
Yeah.
So it should make the racing a little more exciting, but not a good way to make it more exciting.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's talk about Super Pole. Looks again, Cam first lap out, jumps to P1, starts banging out 24s like it's his job, which it kind of is.
It's his job.
He did have a gnarly tank slapper, though. I bet he had to check his shorts after that one.
Yeah, he had a good one. Yeah, and I think that might have deflated the rest of the run. But I think he took out. Well, he never got a good lap on what they call the qualifying tire, which is really the super soft 516 compound. I think they call it. It's like an extra soft. It's the same as the red front tire, I think, the compound. And So sometimes it works for us, sometimes it doesn't. Like I said, he went faster on the hardest option. And so I think we would have chose that hard option if Jake wasn't so close. You follow what I'm saying? Because that hard option gave up a half a second race distance wise. We might have gave up. You might have to fight with Jake a lot harder.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, Mark Johnson again asks,
tell him to shut up.
Was that a Lasco fan I saw trackside?
What's that?
He says, was that a Lasco fan I saw trackside?
Lasco?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that a brand?
I guess.
I don't know. They came with a Yamaha rig.
Okay.
Might have been. Is that a good brand?
You're gonna have to ask Mark on that one, dude.
Maybe it's a good brand because Yamaha wasn't shy to buy the good stuff. Right.
So Super Pole Jake, you know, P2 from the jump. He's just a little bit off of cam. He look, his bike looked fast as hell. I mean, you know, he smoked past that Ducati like it was tacked to the floor. So, I mean, you know, like I said, I don't know what the hell Josef is feeding those things at the shop, but
you know that it's not that the bike is like some crazy big number. It's that it uses all the power between the odd fire engine and the electronics and the rider. They use everything that thing's got, and that's how it looks. It isn't always that you need the most horsepower, because sometimes it makes the bike unruly. You know, in 2006, I think I've mentioned this before, we had the world's worst motorcycle we had to work on. It was the Kawasaki ZX-10. And that was our platform. They wanted us to run super stock, and the thing made way too much power for the chassis. Complete freaking noodle, you know. And after Daytona, when we had the hard tires, we went to another track which we used soft tires and tied the bike up so bad the guys couldn't grab their, you know what, with both hands. And it was just that way all season. After we had a really good run at Daytona with hard tires, the hard tires couldn't put the pressure on the chassis. So back to, you know, hey, it's a Yamaha R1. It's got a stable chassis. The bits we put on it are really good. So it's an easy motorcycle to ride. And so you can get the most out of whatever horsepower you have, whether it's, let's say 180 or 250. You know, if you have a good chassis, you're going to be able to put that down. That's what makes a bike fast.
Yeah, I'm sure the marketing dudes at Yamaha have the whole thing about the power pulses or whatever, the cross plane maybe being a bit easier coming off the corner. I kind of remember that in Yamaha University a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Right? It's actually been that way in MotoGP forever.
Right.
Since the two strokes. They had the screamers for a little while. Even the two strokes had they were messing around with different things with that, different configurations. But you know, so pretty much all the MotoGP bikes are odd fire. You know, I don't know of any MotoGP bike that's a screamer anymore.
So I think Jake ended up P4 on the second row, and then Skoltzy ended up P2, which is crazy. You know, one thing I did notice, you know, he was going fast and he looked really good on the motorcycle. It's kind of funny. They had a slow-mo of him ripping the starter battery charger thing off the bike on the track.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure some mechanic had his head in his hands at that point, forgot it on there.
Yeah, it's like
I don't like those little bitty jumper batteries of people. That's not the first time I've seen that. I saw that I think on Gagne's bike when he was riding for that guy that teaches the dirt bike classes.
Wow, man.
He rode around with a battery hanging off his tail also.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of those jumper batteries. I like the ones that are big and they go on the foot peg, and there's no possible way you can leave them on.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Plus our crew's pretty switched on. You know, they don't make mistakes like that, but we do stare at each other.
Mistakes. I mean, we all make mistakes, but you just don't want to make one like that and end up on TV going, oh.
Yeah. Like I said, some mechanic has his head in his hands. Yeah, everyone makes mistakes. That's why we all stared at each other at session 1.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and session 2 with Jake, right? I mean.
Yeah. Well, that was a technical issue that wasn't a mechanics problem per se.
Right.
That was more of a component issue, which just happens. You know, you get a little bit of corrosion somewhere. So you address it. You go, okay, more dielectric grease this time. You know, try to keep that stuff corrosion free. It's a few different connectors on the motorcycle that are not waterproof.
So here's another Mark Johnson question. Mark's like our big questioner.
Yeah, he is. He's got a whole notepad full of them.
All kinds of stuff. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah. I think Mark's gonna have to take your seat, push you aside.
Don't get him started. I'm gonna have to hear about it next time at the track day. But you know, Mark asks, does Jake analyze Cameron's data? And if so, were there any spiritual revelations from it?
Spiritual revelation. Yeah, we all kneel together as we look to the data. No, I mean, yes. I mean, we can do overlays between the riders and say, hey, he's making up 2/10 right here. We did that. We did quite a bit of that. You know, the delta, the variance between the two riders. We did quite a bit of that when we had Chaz Davies and Steve Rapp.
Yeah.
There was one section in Mid-Ohio where Steve was making 2 back shifts before a little flip flop, and then Chaz was making 1 back shift, making a change of direction and another back shift. And that was worth 2/10 to be able to flow through the first one. So sometimes you'll see different things like that, and you go, hey man, you should probably try this, and they pick up a couple tenths.
Oh.
But sometimes also, you know, the riders, Cameron's style is quite a bit different than Jake's.
Yeah.
You know, he sits on the motorcycle, he doesn't hang off, doesn't have his elbows out. You can see him go through the S's, not a whole lot of energy spent, even though there is. You know, you look at the aggression on the data, you're like, hey, he's pretty aggressive. But you don't see it on the motorcycle. Like, it flows with the bike.
Sunday ride out the start.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I don't know how you know.
And
Jake is like a vintage dirt track racer or something. Like, the dude is just elbows out. He's violent with the thing, kicking it sideways. It's awesome to watch.
Yeah, he's a talented rider, and they're both talented in their own way. So you look at the data and you're like, they're opening the throttle at the same time, and maybe Jake's even applying more brake than Cameron is. And so then when you have it that close where it's like a 1/10 or 2 difference, or even a half second at that pace, sometimes there isn't much you can show on a variance. You can say, okay, well, you're opening the throttle good, you're braking here. Okay, maybe you're losing a little bit there. But sometimes it comes down to the style and how they approach the corner and things like that. You don't quite see on data.
So, well, let's talk about the races. You know, look like you know, flag drop. Looked like Cam was gonna whole shot the thing like he does, and holy crap, Jake snuck in there on the inside.
Oh yeah, Cameron said, I'm gonna make sure I close the door next time.
I know, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna be a little tighter.
I mean, you know, you don't really expect to see Jake running in the front so early, you know? I mean, he's hungry. That dude, he's going to try for a win at some point.
Yeah, I was very proud of those guys. They made, I mean, the first lap, they made those bikes look like MotoGP versus, you know, 600s.
I was going to say they look like everybody else was in B group, but.
Yeah, you know, it depends on whatever class you want to talk about. It was like A group versus B group.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I was almost embarrassed for everyone. You know, I mean, I kind of felt I was proud of those guys, and I looked at the bikes and it looked really, really good. And Jake was just going like stink, and it took a little bit of work for Cameron to get by. I'm like, wow, this is really working good. And then at the same time, like, what happened to everyone?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the first lap, I mean, they already had a pretty decent gap on Tony, and I was like, just like, whoa.
Yeah, over 2 seconds. I think it was 2.5 seconds, maybe. One lap. I mean, they went, by the time they got the S's, they were already a second.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like a few corners.
You know, and then Cam kind of snuck by there in lap 2 and then just kind of checked out. But you know what? He didn't really check out much for a while. I mean, Jake hung in there.
Yeah, no, Jake kept the pace, and yeah, they really destroyed the other guys. But then I think Cameron was a lot calmer the next day in race 2. You know, kind of just managed the gap instead of worked real hard. The heat was high.
Do you think that in the race, you know, maybe because you know, Jake was pushing pretty hard to hang? I mean, do you think he hit his aggressive style beat up the tire or something? Like, what did you find there? Because I think he still hung in there. I think Cameron ended up beating him by, I don't know, around 5 seconds or something, or just
5 or 6 seconds, and I think he was 11. Jake was 11 up on Schultze.
Yeah.
So, so I think we had 17 on Schultz.
Yeah.
Which is an incredible amount. And no, I think Jake had a pretty good pace. It was just I think we missed a little bit of time in QP2 and Superpole with Jake.
Yeah.
And so it took him a little bit of time to make that up. You follow what I'm saying? Like we
yeah,
the relay connector.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like Matt was going good, but I mean, Tony was kind of coming back at him, taking shots, right? And and then poor Bobby Fong. I mean, I don't know how the hell he rides injured like he does, but I mean, I guess he's made with his hand or something.
Yeah, he usually bounces pretty good, and he's up and going again. But this time around, he had a pretty good tumble going into one. You could see where he lost some grip on the front. So I think they got a little bit of work to do on the front of that motorcycle.
Yeah, the biggest thing that I saw, and this is what the guys on TV were talking about or whatever, is Cameron's fastest lap time was 1.8 seconds faster than Tony's fastest. I mean, Jesus, like how do you be a top level superbike racer and look at that and like, what the hell do you do?
Yeah, I'm not going to take those guys for granted. I mean, you remember how Batista was last year.
Yeah.
Ducati, and then all of a sudden it all ended for whatever reason. So I'm not going to take anything for granted. We just put our head down and work hard.
No, not at all.
But one of the things that Cameron said to me was kind of funny. He said, one of the sessions, I think it was after qualifying, he said, because people kind of closed up, we didn't have a good run on the qualifying tire. He goes, so on the race tire, am I still a second faster than everyone?
Huh.
Yeah. So that's his mindset is really racing the clock and racing the other guys by a gap. Not necessarily am I trying to be better than those guys or trying to beat those guys. He's one-upped it on himself, which is kind of cool. Someone putting pressure on themselves to perform.
So Daniel Montgomery asks, how many starts do you guys get per clutch? And what brand of clutch are you guys using?
So we use a Suter back torque limiter, and we use all the OEM plates with the Suter back torque limiter. And so with our setup and how aggressive the guys are, we are checking the clutch 3 times a weekend. So we're into it at the beginning, then we're into it right after Superpole for race 1, and then we're into it again after race 2. And we'll probably change out. What we do is we measure all the different fibers, and we have a limit on each one. And so we'll change them out as needed, but we don't necessarily change out the whole clutch, let's say. We just change out the ones that are thin. So we go to the lower limit, and then we set the clutch to the spec. There's like a little air gap spec that Suter supplies, and we basically run out of the box Suter. Our limiting spring might be a little stiffer than most because we have a lot of electronics aids for engine back torque. But if I had a like a standard kit box or a flash box, I would probably just throw the Suter in as is, like straight out of the instruction manual, and work really well. It's a really good clutch.
Buy one of those?
What's that?
I said, are you trying to get me to buy one of those too?
I think you need one. I think it's a good tool.
Okay.
It's not even am I trying to get you to buy one. That's like, saying that I don't need to put new tires on it for a race.
Okay.
That's about the same kind of difference in performance.
Joseph, if you're watching.
Yeah. we got a few on the shelf.
I'm sure he does.
Probably get you a good deal on one of our last year's takeouts.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, John McCallan says, yeah, it is a good clutch. So there you go.
It doesn't seesaw. It's got to stop on the amount of disengagement. As long as you know how to set it and you go by that manual, which is a pretty good starting position, it'll be spot on for you.
So, okay. So, you Yamaha sweep on the podium race 1. So, how is that for you? I mean, you're definitely living up to what Yamaha's kind of entrusted you guys to do.
Yeah, the program's come along good. We got the new bikes. We're developing the what we had last year, and we kind of smashed it together with what Yamaha had last year as well between the riders. I think we made the bike a little bit easier to ride. So it's the next generation of motorcycle. And so the guys are able to get up to speed faster. You know, like for instance, just apples to apples. It took, I think, Garrett about 1.5 years to come to terms with their bike, but it's taken Jake only a few races to come to terms with this motorcycle. So
Yeah,
it tells me that we're in the right direction. You know, the bike's easier to ride, and the riders get used to it a lot faster and bigger window of opportunity on the motorcycle.
so race 2, you know, Cam, looks like Cam learned that lesson from Jake in race 1, and he basically used Jake's move to get around Tony off the start, which is pretty funny.
Oh yeah.
You know, and Maddie got a good start as well.
Yep. Yay, Matt. Finally.
So, I mean, but still, into the first lap, you know, Cam and Jake started to get a little gap already, right?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if you saw it, but Jake had a really good move on Tony going into turn 6, right around the outside of him.
Yeah.
He actually lost. He told me he lost the front, and it came back right at the edge of the track. You know, he basically was pushing the front all the way around there.
Yeah.
But you know, Tony's normally the guy who blocks you on the inside and you can't get past. So I thought it was kind of a brilliant move. You know, I was like, yes. You know, when he went around the outside of him and made it stick.
Yeah, I wrote this in my notes. You know, watching Jake right around the outside of Tony is just legend. It's like, wow, man, like that's awesome. Like Tony made it go around the outside, and he just went right around the outside. Like,
yeah, he used up all. I don't know if he was going to make the corner. I mean, it was like, wow, he's going around the outside, and then he didn't even know if he's going to make it stick in the next corner. But he just got enough around Tony that Tony, I don't think he was able to get a good drive off of that one.
yeah,
it's one big arc really between those corners. You know, it's a very short straightaway. So once you got around the outside, you can't really jump to the next one. So it was kind of a perfect move.
And then you know, looked like Jake was going pretty good, and then he had a rather gnarly moment during the race. But he hung in there. You know, I mean, it seemed a pretty lonely race for him, pretty much as it was for Cameron, right? I mean,
yeah, you know, I was looking at the timing and scoring, and Bobby was coming on pretty decent, about mid-race onto Jake.
Yeah.
But he couldn't seem to get past Schultz. I think he did a 25-2 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
I saw him go green, and that was like almost mid-race. And I said, oh, hey, Bobby's coming. But he didn't. He petered out after that. And Jake just kept a nice constant pace and kept the pressure on Cameron. You know, and Cameron was watching the pit board. You know, I was giving our guy at the wall, you know, the 10-4 on what the times were and how fast Jake was coming. Because, you know, even though I want both guys to win, you got to have the guy you're crew chiefing for win, right?
Right.
So we're still trying to beat the other guy on our team. It's kind of a weird conflict of interest.
Priority is to beat your teammate, right?
Yeah, but you know, because we're, you know, we as a team develop the motorcycle, so you kind of want both guys to win, but there's no such thing as a tie in racing, you know?
Right. So I'm noticing also on the cool down laps, I'm rather disappointed in you. You haven't given Cameron the wheelie button yet.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if he forgot it was there or if I forgot to put it there again. He didn't ask for it. I think it was a hot race, and he just, you know, he wants to get back in and get cooled down. It was super hot and humid.
It looked it. I mean,
and that track is not a restful track. Even when you're going down the back straightaway, the bikes move and they slide and they're against the limiter. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of action happening on the motorcycle. So it's not a very, very pleasant racetrack to ride in the heat.
I imagine not. I mean, it looks pretty busy, but it also, I just, you know, being from the South and knowing how that humidity is there, you know, it's those guys even Cameron after that second race, he looked pretty ragged, you know?
Yeah, he was a little bit wiped out after the first one. And I think it carried over the second one. So I think I think he just maintained the pace in the second one, just didn't want to overly exert himself. It's a long race.
Yeah.
You don't exactly stop for a Mountain Dew halfway through it.
So, you know what? I think that's it for the races, but I have a couple more fan questions. So Chris Lopez earlier asked me, about, and I've heard this actually before, but there's some rumors that Cam possibly going to World Superbike after the announcement of the Vandermark dude leaving the factory team. And, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I mean, if that happened, that'd be great for him.
Yeah.
We have another year with Yamaha, and they decide what happens after that. They probably decide what happens with Cameron, but if that happened, that'd be awesome for him. I'd like to see him step up and get to that next class. I think that's up to Cameron and the guys in Europe. Andrea, who runs the World Superbike team. I think those guys will decide the future of any of the riders. But I'm just a little tool over here in the United States doing my thing.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of chatter. You probably remember it when Matt Mladen was kind of dominating too, and people are like, "Oh, he needs to go to World Superbike, or he needs to do this, and he needs to do that." And the one thing that those people don't realize is, Cameron probably has a mortgage to pay and stuff, and to go over there and not get paid, it's got to be the right situation, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, Garrett went and he's taking his chances, but I mean, he had a really good run, like was 9th and 10th, and I think he's gonna be a top 5 player, and once everything comes into play and he learns how to use that motorcycle and those tires. I mean, it's a different animal than what he had last year, leaps and bounds different. So yeah, I think with Cameron, I think that's up to him to see how he is. I don't know his finances. I think he's probably doing okay. He probably can afford to go for a year or two and make less or same or whatever they do over there. I don't know. Right. But there's a few slots would pay really well. I've seen some of the riders' salaries coming out of there. We're trying to get ready for last year. We talked to a couple of the riders, and the salaries are pretty decent. I know you talked to them also.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a livable salary for sure.
I mean, some of those guys are making a pretty decent salary just on their gear sponsorships, right?
Yeah, it's all the outside stuff.
The one guy was telling us, well, I'm not going to say his name, but the one guy was telling us some crazy money just for his helmet,
Yeah, exactly.
And his leathers too. I mean, between those two, I mean, that was a pretty decent salary, man.
I think it's a matter of getting a good slot and then taking advantage of all those kinds of things. It may not be the salary directly from the manufacturer. And I remember the bonus structures were really good over there. Not necessarily the base salary, but the bonus structure is really good. But everyone's got this COVID thing and budgetary constraints and all that. Luckily, the motorcycle industry is doing really well even through COVID. Everyone's what they have. So it's crazy times. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, talking to the marketing dudes. I mean, I think one of the guys was telling me that they sold out of R1s.
Yeah, no, I mean, I talked to some of because we were in Atlanta and Yamaha's in Atlanta. Like they've moved a lot of their head cheesers over there, and talking to a couple of them over there, they came over to our truck, and they're pretty happy the way things are going now, even with this world pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's across the board though. Anything fun is gone. I mean, the bicycle shops even. We were talking to a mom at the track last weekend, and she was saying that she was looking to buy a bicycle for her daughter, and she said all the bicycles were gone, and the only thing available were the $1,000 ones. And she's like, "I'm not buying my kid a $1,000 bicycle."
You're like, I paid 5 times that.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't buying one of those. She was buying like a little, with the streamers and pink and stuff.
Right, I got you. Yeah, little girl.
Yeah, all those were gone, and all that's left is like $1,000 minimum mountain bikes and stuff. So
no, I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's see who else. Sebastian Sanchez actually has a couple of questions. So again, we talked about this a little bit before, but he wanted to talk to you. He wanted to talk about your quote engine cassette a little bit, and was this an in-house attack idea, or was this something that other teams have done or started to do across the board?
It's an in-house idea. We've always tried to make the package as ready to go as possible. We just keep expanding on it. And then not last year, year before, we made an engine stand with handles that was able to carry a lot of the external stuff too, short of the airbox, like the radiator and the oil cooler and all that stuff. Because you look at the system and you go, what takes the longest to put together, and how can we defeat that time?
Right.
You know, more efficient. So that's the challenge, right? So you put together, as an engineer, you put together like a little priority list, and things you want to targets. Our target is to minimize the change out. So you start looking at what's efficient, what's not, what takes the longest, try to eliminate that, and then you do that. But I've heard of, in world endurance, them having very fast engine change capability. So they're always ready to go, because let's say for a 24-hour endurance race.
Yeah. I mean, I've been at the shop when you guys were practicing with that thing, and I mean, it's amazing how quick you guys are able to swap an engine. So
yeah, it's fast.
You got the process. If something goes wrong or whatever in hot pit lane during a practice session, you guys could swap it out and have the rider back out on track.
Yeah, well, we have a one bike rule too, right? So
yeah.
So if we have a failure, which we haven't had any, we just had a few little gremlins electronically or whatever. But if we have any kind of failure, then we're able to get it back out in the next session. For instance, between Saturday's practice, FP3, and Superpole, there's only one session between us, which is 600 or something like that, right?
Right.
So we only have basically about less than an hour. So if you have a failure at FP3, you got to get that bike turned back around. You don't want to go to your spare bike, because then you give up the opportunity to go back to that your motorcycle if you want to, the primary.
Right. Okay, so his other question, and actually this ties into that image I sent you earlier today, but he wants to know if those resonance frequency damping devices that go on the swing arm are, quote, snake oil, and if you would install one on your championship bikes if it was okay by the rule book.
I haven't looked at the rule book. I don't think it is. That's called an inerter, which is basically a mass damper, and it does weigh. They're heavy, and I've seen different configurations of them with springs, where you change out the spring, or sometimes they have air pistons in them. They're super heavy with little air jets, so you can change the frequency. And I think it takes quite a bit of time to get that right. And if your motorcycle's having problems, maybe there's some advantage to that. F1 has used that quite a bit, Formula One cars. And I'm not sure if the MotoGP bikes have tested with them or not. I mean, some people say the box on the back of the Ducati's got an inerter in it, but I'll have to go back and look at the rules. It's just one of those things where you have to spend another 20 or 30 grand in testing before you could say it's a yay or nay or any kind of positive the rider can feel.
So you wouldn't say it's snake oil then, or?
No, it's not snake oil, but I think it's a difficult proposition to get right on a motorcycle. It's basically a weight that's bouncing up and down to kind of counteract the movement of the suspension.
Okay.
So if you get that weight bouncing up and down in the wrong frequency, you can make things worse.
Eesh.
You follow what I'm saying? Like you can make something much, much worse if you don't get that thing right.
Okay, so a couple more questions from our favorite TrackDaz / shop customer, Mark.
Johnson?
Yeah. So, actually, Marcus Jackson also has some stuff, but
okay.
Marcus Jackson he's our Marine.
Yeah.
He is TrackDaz staffer. He's a Marine Corps guy stationed in Japan. And he wants to know, when is Cameron getting a haircut?
I don't know. I don't know if haircuts are even allowed these days, Tell him we can ship him over to Camp Pendleton. I'm sure they'll still give out haircuts over there. May not be the style he likes.
And he wants to know if we can get Jake and Cam on one of these chats in the near future.
Yeah, that may be kind of fun.
I mean, we could do it.
Yeah, I'd have to ask him.
It looked like the Brady Bunch on the screen.
Yeah, probably. What Marcus Jackson needs to ask is, when is Jake getting a haircut?
Oh, dude. Yeah, he does walk around with the man bun and stuff, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, not in the man buns, but that's okay. He rides so good, I overlook it.
Yeah, you know, he's a surfer dude. Like,
I
whatever.
know, I
Oh,
know. His dad has a head like mine.
oh,
He
does he?
he actually gave me one of those. Yeah, exactly. He gave me one of those head shavers. Apparently, the one you use like a palm,
Oh, the head blade.
something like that. He's like, "Hey, I got you this." I'm like, "Damn it! Now I gotta give Jake the good stuff."
Nice.
I was
Nice.
putting around with him. Yeah, his
That's
dad
funny.
looks like you and me with a head.
Oh man. You know, it's easy to maintain, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and then Tony Anderson asks about your front slash mid stand. And
Yep.
he asked, what stand is that?
That's a custom one that we made.
I figured as much.
Yeah, it's not one that anyone sells on the market.
Yeah, so how does one go about buying one of those from you?
Yeah, it doesn't happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tony.
Yeah, it just takes too much time to build those things. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some company out there that might make a mid stand of some type that he can research, but they're super handy for sure.
Yeah, I mean it was yeah, I used that stand on your bike at the trade show a couple years ago, and it was pretty cool. You're able to get the front wheel in the air and not have to have such a long table to put the
Yeah.
bike on, right?
Yeah. Also, you can change the forks and shock. I mean, take the forks and everything off the front end without having to have a pin stand and stands on the frame, and you change the offset. It's just way better to work with.
Right.
You don't need frame stands to do any kind of front end work.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Richard, I think that's about it, man. We're about an hour in, and
Yeah,
we asked
cool.
a bunch of questions. You got anything else to add about? You know what? Let's talk about Pitt Race. Like, what's your plan? I mean, I know you've been hanging out at the hotel the last couple of days.
Yeah, we actually we went. I got some exercise today and watched the semi here at the hotel. You know, I'm not at the still at the podium here. This is actually a fake screen. I'm actually in a hotel room hanging out.
So,
But
semi, and then what else?
yeah, so yeah, that was that race. Was it our first Superbike win with Josh? I think it was. Maybe it was the second one. Might have been the second one.
Yeah.
But we'd never been here before, and we learned it pretty
Yeah.
fast with Josh in 18.
Yeah.
But we struggled quite a bit with JD here in 19. And so I'm kind of curious to see how the guys get along, because we had one really good year, it was easy, and then one really tough year. So I think Cameron got along really well here, and I think I'm curious to see how it goes. Like I said, sometimes you have a really good weekend, and it all turns to not a really good weekend the next weekend.
Right. I mean, I was gonna say, I wonder. I mean, is there anybody that can stop Cameron? I mean, he's won every race he's finished.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'd like to keep that going.
Yeah.
So I don't know. A person can stop Cameron, maybe Jonathan Rhea. I mean, I don't know.
He said Jonathan Rhea. Nice. Yeah. I mean, I know Jake wants to stop him, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
that's
absolutely.
definitely hungry.
Yeah, and Jake, I think he goes well at this track. If I remember right, even on that Beamer, he was going pretty good. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I'm not going to. I think Tony went really good here last year.
And what are you? Are there any different plans for the bikes? I mean, to further the development in the week that you've had off, or?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it last time. We're going to go back and do a little bit of engine development and build some more spares, because we're kind of shy some parts, and just the whole COVID thing, kind of compacted all of our work, and so we're a little bit shy on some stuff. So we'll work on some spares, and we'll work on some engine development. We were kind of shy on that as well, and we'll see if we make the bikes a little bit faster on top speed for Indy.
Okay.
But for the other tracks, it's not, the speed isn't. We're thinking Coda was the one we really had to work at to make sure we were fast, but looking like Indy is the one we're going to have to work towards. And then yeah, that's it. Just keep working on handling and keep working on the chassis and electronics. That's it.
And you said you were reviewing the forecast for this weekend at Pitt Race. Like, what's that looking like so far?
It's looking like it's going to be sunny, you know, for the races. So again, if we get a little drizzle here and there, it might just, you know, be girly men and sit in the pits.
Right on, man. Well, you know what? I think we pretty much covered it. Let me check the YouTube comments real quick, see if there's anything else.
Marcus Johnson?
No more Marcus Johnson. No Marcus Jackson either.
Jackson. Johnson, Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, they both use a Q in the name too, which is
do they?
Yeah.
Confuses you.
Yeah. So I think this is it, man. Good luck this weekend, and I guess I'll holler at you next Wednesday.
All right, later. Have fun.
Cool.
See ya.